I'm about to share a story with you, probably something familiar, as these things tend to follow a pattern. The signs were all there, the usual hints, but I'll tell you about it anyway. It began like any typical Friday night. My wife, Andrea, had her usual plans for a girls' night out. I didn't think much of it, though I wasn't particularly fond of her friends. Two of them were single, and the other two were divorced. Nothing unusual had occurred up until this point. Over the past few months, Andrea had started going out with her friends every couple of weeks. It seemed harmless, a way for her to relax and recharge. At least, that's what I told myself. She left the house around 7 p.m., wearing a striking red dress I hadn't seen her put on in years. "You look nice," I remarked with a small smile. "Thanks," she replied curtly, barely glancing at me as she grabbed her purse and headed out the door. Her dismissive tone stung, but I shrugged it off. Things between us had been strained lately. She had been telling me that I didn't appreciate her enough, that I wasn't attentive. I tried, though. I'd bring home flowers, but she'd give a half-hearted acknowledgement. I'd suggest going out for dinner, and she'd say she was too tired. I'd even offer to watch her favorite shows together, but she'd accuse me of doing it just to appease her, not because I wanted to. I'll admit, I've been busy with work, trying to climb the ladder so we could afford that vacation she'd been dreaming about. I thought I was doing what was right. Whenever I could, I tried to make it up to her, but it seemed like whatever I did, it wasn't enough. That night, however, felt different. Andrea had never stayed out past midnight on her other girls' nights, but this time, it was almost 6 a.m. before I finally heard her car pull into the driveway. I stayed on the couch, the TV muted, pretending to scroll through my phone. The door creaked open, and Andrea walked in. Immediately, I noticed something was off. She was now wearing an entirely different outfit, a loose black tank top and leggings. Her makeup was smudged, her hair in disarray, and then the smell hit me. It was an overwhelming mix of sweat, perfume, cologne, alcohol, and an unmistakable musk. "Hey!" she said casually, as though it were any other night. I stared at her, working hard to keep my voice even. "You changed clothes?" "Oh, yeah. I spilled a drink on my dress," she said quickly. Avoiding eye contact, Andrea set her purse down on the counter, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "You didn't text me, didn't call, nothing. You didn't let me know you'd be gone all night," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. Her shoulders stiffened. "It was girls' night, Michael. Do I really need to check in with you every 5 minutes?" "It's called respect," I countered, stepping closer. "I've been here worrying, wondering if something happened to you. Then you walk in wearing different clothes, and you reek of things I don't even want to name." Her face flushed for a moment before she covered it with a mix of defiance and irritation. "Are you seriously accusing me of something? If you've got something to say, just say it." My chest tightened, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely think. "Fine. Did you sleep with someone tonight?" She glared at me, her expression a strange blend of defiance, intrigue, and something I couldn't quite place. For a moment, her eyes locked with mine, but then they flicked away. That hesitation, brief but unmistakable, told me everything I needed to know. "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "Is your trust in me so non-existent that you jump straight to this?" "Andrea, stop dodging. Just tell me the truth," I said, my voice rising slightly. "Don't make this worse." Her arms crossed over her chest, a defensive shield that crumbled as silence pressed down on us. Eventually, she looked at the floor and spoke in a barely audible voice. "It was just once. It didn't mean anything." The room seemed to close in around me. My chest felt like it might collapse, and my pulse roared in my ears. "What?" I managed to say, my voice cracking. She didn't answer, didn't look up. She just stood there, staring at the floor as though it held the answers. "What made you do this?" I asked, taking a step back, trying to hold back the surge of anger threatening to take over. "What the hell were you thinking?" She still didn't respond, arms crossed tightly, She refused to meet my gaze. For several long moments, the silence was unbearable. Then, something inside me snapped and my rationality took the reins. "That's it," I said, my voice cold and firm. "I'm done. We're getting a divorce." That statement hit her like a physical blow. Her arms fell to her sides, and for the first time that night, panic flickered across her face. "No, Michael. Please, no." "It didn't mean anything," she pleaded, stepping toward me. I moved back. Shaking my head, her hands covered her face, and her voice cracked. "They told me it would make you notice me, that you'd appreciate me more if you thought you might lose me. I thought it would fix things, that it would teach you a lesson. I made a mistake. I just wanted your attention. I thought you'd stop ignoring me." I stared at her, numb. You thought this was the answer. What I was hearing left me stunned. Her friends, 2 divorced women and 2 perpetually single ones, had encouraged her to sabotage our marriage just to make a point. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head, "And you believed them, Andrea? This wasn't some innocent mistake. This was a deliberate decision. You chose to hurt me." My voice was calm, but the anger simmered beneath the surface. Her tears turned into full-blown sobs, but I felt nothing. No pity, no compassion, just a hollow emptiness. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. It didn't mean anything. It was just physical. I love you." "Michael, don't tell me you love me," I shot back, my tone icy. "Because love doesn't look like this. Love doesn't betray, then come home claiming it was all to teach some ridiculous lesson." She reached out, desperate to touch me, but I gently moved her hands away. "Michael, please. We can fix this," she begged, her voice trembling. I grabbed my jacket and keys, looking her in the eye one last time. "No, Andrea. I'm done." I didn't slam the door, didn't yell. I simply walked out. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of changes. I stayed with a friend and filed for divorce as quickly as I could. Andrea tried everything to reach McCall's, texts, even showing up at my office, but I refused to see her. The pain of her betrayal was a wound too deep to heal. Made worse by the toxic influence of her so-called friends over time, I learned through her desperate pleas that they had been planting seeds of doubt in her mind for months, convincing her that I was the problem in our marriage. The irony? If she had just come to me, if we had sat down and communicated, maybe even gone to therapy, we could have worked through our issues. But now, none of that mattered. People always say marriage is built on trust, and I learned the hard way how fragile that trust can be. Once it's shattered, there's no putting the pieces back together. Here's my advice. Don't let someone else cast you as the villain in their narrative, especially if you've done everything you can to make it work. Have respect for yourself. Walk away from toxic situations and don't look back. Thanks for reading. If you found this story insightful, feel free to share your thoughts below. What would you have done in my shoes?